I think overcoming odds is you're when you basically have hit a point where you feel like you can't go any further, or you're stuck in a situation that you don't necessarily want to be in, and not giving up. And I think there's like a myriad of ways that you can be in that situation, but I think it always amounts to the same thing, like being in a position that you're not comfortable with, or you're unhappy with, or being in a situation that seems impossible, and finding a way to make a possibility out of what you think at that time is impossible, because there's always a way to overcome a situation that seems really trying, no matter how difficult it seems like it will be. And I think that that's different for every person. I think every situation is relative.
It's an interesting question because it's a very relative and subjective statement. But personally, I would say that overcoming the odds in my life has been about putting in work that I did not want to do in times that it was hard for me to do it. It's about having the grit, the desire, and the passion to persevere when it felt like I had no opportunity or option to succeed. It's about creating social mobility. It's about sustaining a peaceful state of mind and believing in the people who support me. For me, overcoming the odds is fighting and continuing to fight, and to know that regardless of what hardships that I go through, that as long as I give it everything that I have, I will come out better for it in the other end.
What odd do you feel that you overcame?
Many, many. There are many feats that I've had to overcome in order to get where I am in my life. The first was just going to school, going to high school, even middle school. It was hard. It was hard because my family lived in the inner city and went to school 45 minutes away. So I had to get up early in the morning, around 4 o'clock in the morning, to catch the bus. I had to do things as an 11 and a 12-year-old that people usually don't have to do until they're adults. I had to do things as a 15-year-old that some people will never experience in their entire lives. I worked as a janitor when I was through 14 to 16 just to have money for lunch, and that was a night job. And in college, there were odds trying to maintain good grades so that I could create a better space for myself and my family and my life. There are many different things, and that's why I left my answer broad, because my whole life has been a huge obstacle that
Well, for one, someone with my past normally would have. Hold on, let me think about that. That's a tough question.
What's
No,
your
wait.
past like?
Oh. Um. Well, at the age of 3, I was taken from my mom and put in foster care, and I lived with my grandparents, who were at the time they were all right, but they became abusive, so I left them, and so I've been in foster home after foster home,
Yeah.
and I've been in 22 of them.
22.
22.
Wow.
Yeah. At the age of 7, my mom was killed in a fire.
Wow.
Yeah. And I do not know my dad. Never have.
So you don't have any parents?
I do not have any parents. No. I don't know. I feel like someone with my past is normally in a much worse situation. Like, for one, like, it just seems to me that I'm more resilient than a lot of people. Like,
I'm so glad you just said that.
being that, for one, I'm in AP English now and I failed English 10A. That normally that connection never happens, but I've just been dealing with the problems that I've had, and in doing so, I've challenged myself. And I'd say that is the way that I've beat the odds.
Do you think that the life that you were given makes you a better man?
Yeah, I'd say that. I'm able to understand other people better, living with 22 different types of strangers, you know. I can empathize with how people feel. Like, I can look at someone and I can tell how they feel, or I can understand their situation, and it makes me more caring about other people too.
So if you had to say like one sentence of what overcoming the odds is, what do you say?
It is pushing through even though the world is pushing against you.
I feel like I've overcome being a minority in a place that's not filled with many minorities. Because I grew up in Maple Grove and went to elementary school with not that many minorities, less than 5 black people.
Okay.
And it was Fernbrook, and I mean, that's kind of a big elementary school. And then I went to another elementary school, Cedar Island, where there also wasn't many minorities because it was Maple Grove, and my junior high was not minority or anything. And so, like, that whole growing up, being the minority, and it's kind of hard with society.
Do you feel that only minorities can overcome something?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there's different types of things that minorities have to overcome in addition to things that everyone else can overcome, I think. Because, I mean, if you're not minority, there's different types of, like, discrimination. Like, you can't feel certain discriminations unless you're of a minority. So, I mean, like, you can feel gender discrimination, but everyone's like that. Which, like, racial discrimination, I guess, yeah, but not as often.
If you had to say what overcoming the odds is in one word, in, like, one sentence, what would it be?
What would I say it is? I think overcoming is not necessarily making it not happen anymore, because, like,
I really do think that beating the odds for a minority is not necessarily beating what a stereotype tells you you're going to be, but just beating that stereotype and showing people, hey, I'm not just a black person, like I'm a high school graduate. Like can you view me as a high school graduate or someone who didn't go to jail, and not as a black person who succeeded? Why does it always have to be I'm black and I succeeded? Why can't it be I succeeded? So I think you're trying to beat the stereotype that's put down on you. I don't think it's what the stereotype says that you will do. I don't think you're beating the odds because you're black and you graduated. I think you're beating the odds because you're forcing people to view you as a graduate, not a black person.
So you're both, but you're one and the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you're an individual, but that is a part of who you are.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you feel like you've overcome?
Do you want to go?
Sure. Well, last winter, my dad passed away, and I think a lot of times when people think of kids in high school with their parents dying, they drop out, they don't care about school, they get into bad things, they turn to drugs, alcohol, whatever, and for me none of that happened, and fortunately I was really blessed with supportive friends and family, and I got through it. I mean, I didn't lose a single point on my GPA, and I pushed through everything, and I had to work really hard, but I'm not defined by my father dying. I'm my own person, and I've it's part of me and part of who I am and part of how I've developed, but I've beaten that, and I've not let it become who I am, and
well, growing up with a really physically and verbally abusive sister, I think society looks at abused children and they think that we're really angry people, or that I'm always crying, or that I fall into severe depression and I start killing myself, or start trying to kill myself, or I start doing drugs because I can't handle my pain and I hate my sister. But I don't think I'm any of that. I think I came out of a really abusive part of my life, not wanting to be angry at my sister, and it took a really long time, but my sister and I have a good relationship, as good as it can get right now, and I think loving my sister is beating the odds in general. I mean, loving someone who put you through so much pain is a lot to do, and I don't do drugs, and I think it is because I was incredibly blessed with supportive people and a supportive family who kicked my sister out to give me a safe place to live, and I don't think I beat the odds alone, but I definitely think...
Now say your name.
Katie Gerber.
I'm Nikki Rowe.
All right. So do you guys feel that only minorities can overcome the odds?
No. Well, if you're like racial minorities, I don't think so. Because I mean, you look at like homeless people or like the children in Appalachia or whatever who come from like really poor families, and they might be white, but they still definitely have odds, and there's like barriers to them being successful and like moving forward. And so I think not only racial minorities can beat the odds. There are definitely white people who can beat the odds too. So, yeah.
You agree?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I was going to mention the homeless people, but I think it's also really important to realize that odds aren't just like, I guess beating the odds and like succeeding off of the odds isn't just like limited to what white people can do and like what minorities can't do. I think it's all about the circumstances of living, or the way that you live, and your opinions and your perspectives of life. And I think everyone has their own ability to create odds or to succeed odds or beat odds. I don't think it's limited to just racial. Because yeah, I definitely think minorities can beat odds every day, and you see it more often, and I think it's highlighted more often. And I think it's really cool to hear about them, but I don't think they're the only people